All right, I'm going to
Good
mute
evening,
this.
everyone, and welcome to the launch of Anton Yakovlev's One Night We Will No Longer Bear the Ocean. My name is Nicole Tallman, and I am the editor of Redacted Books, and I had the honor of publishing Anton's latest book. Redacted Books is a series that's published by ELJ Editions, a great little press out of New York. And I just want to say when this is the second book in our redacted book series. The first book I published, it's Maureen Seaton's book, The Sky is an Elephant. That was the very first book in the series. And when I was looking for the second book in the series, I was trying to find a way to sort of wed the books together. And I noticed when I saw Anton's manuscript, there was just something very musical about it. Musical, surreal, and beautiful. And that's what led me to choose that book, just the beauty of Anton's words and how musical Anton is as a poet. I've admired Anton for a while, and I had the privilege of taking a class with him um, a while back. It was Alex Dimitrov's class. It was a Monday night poetry class. It was something, I'll tell you. And from the moment I started to hear Anton read, I said, I have to know more about this poet and his work, because it was just like unlike anything I'd ever read before. Really, it sort of defines categorization. And so when I found out that Anton had a manuscript, we'd been talking at AWP, and he put something together and submitted it, I knew it needed to be the second book. So it's with a lot of honor that I'm hosting this event tonight. And I'm just going to say, as we're listening to Anton and our three amazing guest readers, if you could please just keep yourself muted, we'll be happy to respond to any questions that you may have at the end. But for now, we need everyone to keep muted so that we can focus on the reading. Okay, so please be respectful of that. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Anton, who's going to just say a couple of quick words and introduce our guest readers before he honors us with his reading. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And obviously, thanks to Ariana, thanks to everyone at the LJ Editions. I'm really an honor to be um, to work with you, Nicole. It was a really great process, sort of back and forth on the manuscript, some of the kind of exchange of ideas and the editing that you've done. So really, really appreciate and value that. And I guess thanks everyone for being here as well. Really, really appreciate it. And I had three endorsements from amazing poets who are. I was so honored to have their kind words on the back of the book, and they have really encouraged me and my work over the years. So I would like to invite Bob Holman, then Teresa Burns, then Andrei Codrescu to read some of their work. And I'm going to start with Bob Holman, who has been really one of my poetry heroes for many years. Bob, as many of you know, is the owner of Bowery Poetry Club, and I started coming to the Bowery about more than 10 years ago to their open mics, and they did a couple of reading series there. And for a few years, I was organizing a workshop series before the pandemic. And Bob really his own work, and also just the contribution to culture, his poetry, his filmmaking, the work he's done on endangered languages, and all the cultural contribution he has done cannot be underestimated. And it's really an honor to he's been encouraging me to have a book for many years. I had some chapbooks, I had the book of translations. And I'm really honored that, Bob, that you have endorsed this one. So, Bob Holman, please welcome.
That's very sweet, Anton. Thank you. Anton is a giant among poets, or just he's a giant among anybody. And I'll go ahead and name it. He's, to me, the classic Russian surrealist who writes in English, but much more Yesenin than Mayakovsky. I want to make that clear right now, okay? And since I've made that clear, I'm going to go ahead and read a poem of his. Nicole, this is a beautiful book, and if you don't have it, now you do. No, I mean, you will go get it. And this poem is called I Held You Like a Pencil Drawing, or I Held You Like a Pencil Drawing. That was my first mistake. Whoever expected us to become the best movie of the decade needs to go home and become a better person. The rain stayed right where it fell. Even shadows failed better than we. Perhaps I could have still become your John the Baptist. You wouldn't have had to be Salome. Funny how a hand gesture can make one's year. 1 second you're a statue in a crypt, the next you're a full moon. Tides of skyscrapers obeyed you, birds learned your songs, dogs bit each other at not having you in their lives. I could have jumped in the riptide, but a park ranger stopped me. I think about your lost photo albums, what iceberg has now absorbed them in the Arctic Ocean. Who doesn't know the feeling? You dive, and there it is, nibbled by belugas. And then you take up residence in the neighboring Coast Guard station and drink. Who wouldn't? For 6 months, you stare at a sketch of an aborted pipeline. Eventually, it gets easier. You go back to your ancestral secondary city. A skeleton of a boy you knew rules the landscape. Anton Yakovlev from One Night We Will No Longer Bear the Ocean. I'm going to read a few short poems and then from my book, The Unspoken. Relationship. In order to save the relationship, we will never see each other again. How to wake up. 1, go to sleep. Night fears. Everyone is in love, except you. Rain. How I love to stand in the driving rain, blowing my horn at the entrance to the Holland Tunnel. Finally, required reading. The air grew so heavy, all our imagination was required to free the birds from the clouds. Well, what I've decided to read actually are some praise poems. And the first praise poem I want to read, this is a tradition I picked up from the griots of West Africa. And for the griots, it's almost a way to earn a living. And, you'll make a praise poem for whoever's in the village that day or coming to visit. And as long as the people keep dancing and putting money into the sound hole of your kora, the praise poem continues. So we'll see how long these last. This is for Jerry Rothenberg, who died a couple of weeks ago. He's a true hero. Oh, this was written for his birthday party in 2013. I guess he was about 103 at that point. Oh, what a coincidence that we needed a party and they say it's your birthday. We praise the hairs of your chinny chin chin, Jerry, Jer. Home, foam, loam, dome, Jerome. You who woke up the world by gentle beetle breaths just off the edge of the page. You who shook the pump till the kin flowed out, and now we ken all your kin. Children of the Rothenberg, all praise you now, to you now. Speaking of which, Alcharinga, New Wilderness, Lorca Dada, Poland, and the game of silence. A prophecy, Kerbin, big Jewish tongue, hawks well, in no particular, yes, We know ethnopoetics. We know ethnopoetics today. Schfitter's Millennium, yes, both. And all we can do is say, give Jerry some more birthdays. Would that we could. Come to praise Jerry on the birthday day. He's the one who now 82 and 13. Dial his number, he'll hold you on. He'll hold you on hold forever on his style. Hello, Diane. And of course, Charlie, the music, Jerry, the throat, Jerry, the larynx, Jerry, the teeth, the lips, the breath, the wind piping. Yep, the sound of the unsound. Unsuspecting diddly boom, la la da da wah wah sounds of the pea pie poet. It right by you, oh, we praise love, the praise, dearly beloved. We all, dear Wex and Zaza, strain ways, Jerome, Jer, we do to you finally. He who wrote the oral tradition without killing it, Jerry Jerome Rothenberg. Well, it's not just poets who get the praise treatment in this book. There's actually a couple of TV actors or actors in general who I loved and who died around the same time. And so they got into the praise category. This is for James Gandolfini, who actually did read for the Bowery Poetry Club in one of our Hollywood Does Poetry readings. I wanted him to read Emily Dickinson, but he went for, well, I won't say who he went for. I'll just say he didn't do Emily. It's called The Prairie. The Prairie for James Gandolfini, the stage for James Gandolfini, the TV screen for James Gandolfini. The mountain is James Gandolfini. Yes, Jimmy's a shy monster. Yes, he is. The General James Gandolfini is so specifically James Gandolfini. He's Tony. He's the boss. We call him Dad James Gandolfini. The white bathrobe of Jim Gandolfini walks past the pool, down the driveway to get the newspaper, the New York Times. Is James Gandolfini is what, obituary? Stunned and Star Ledger? James Gandolfini, Mercedes, preferred method of sausage. Prairie, making sausage. Nietzsche is James Gandolfini, the mind of James Gandolfini, an ocean of Jim. And on stage, a tiger. He was everyone's James Gandolfini, kind of like breathing, kind of like James Gandolfini, like praising. James Gandolfini, he was everyone's James Gandolfini. This is for Philip Seymour Hoffman, Bird with No Mouth. How do you hear the bird with no mouth? Inside the box that is your mind's safe cupboard of gray. Solitude sparks electricity, bolts rifle gray matter, blown dust liquidity, luminous blank. The voice only speaks because in this place song is reduced, memes, melody separated. You see, feel, taste, smell words as gray, moistening, meaning flow, boiling capacitors. What may this cannot sing, knowing birds say? Meaning gray plain on hill, solid, one plank bridge, swinging vocabulary, rippling cortex. Who fits there with you, slides in beside? The news isn't good, bird is sorry to say. Makes too much sense. Bleak beak breaks. Someone has gone, world, left world behind. Lackluster lick rhyme, gray, gray with gray. For dear Philip Seymour Hoffman, who died not far from the Bowery Poetry Club of an overdose, much too soon. So I'm closing now with a little longer poem. It's a true account of Ntozake Shange's luminous appearance at the Harlem Poetry Salon, spreading life, love, and poetry to everyone a week before she passed. And this has a cast that appears in the poem. So here's the cast: Quincy Troop, Margaret Porter Troop, Victor Hernandez Cruz, Willie Perdomo, Nancy Mercado, Orion Noel, Ed Morales, Mariposa, Maria Teresa Fernandez, Pedro Pietri, Edwin Torres, Lydia Cortez, the Heckler, Felipe Luciano, Umar bin Hassan, Abiodun Oyewole, Fei Chang, The Basement Workshop, Savannah Shang, David Murray, Amiri Baraka, Spaceman, Gwendolyn Brooks, The Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church, Jessica Hagedorn, Robbie McCauley, Lori Carlos, Miguel Algarin, Hector Laveau, Tulani Davis, and Bob Kaufman. Pretty good cast. Difficult to get together. It was just one of those Harlem Sunday afternoon salons at Quincy and Margaret's where the starting time is 2 o'clock, and when you get there at 3, you're early. It's Victor's Day, PR Day, Borinquin. Beneath the Spanish, he lyricizes, canonizes the debonair air, the melodious flow, Taína, Taíno, Bomba y Plena, emergent Morocco, life in the shadow of Espanol. Been there, being there, always there, home in Harlem, where Willie opens the barrio.
This one's pretty strong, babe.
Where it all
It's
begins.
a really good one, but it's quick. You want me to get it?
Where Willie opens the barrio, that corner where it all begins. Nancy Supermarket, joy and anger intermixed, global warming, burning mad, sing flinging, we're all an ear here, where Orion gets the university woke, the Academy of Chevre, articulate, matriculate, tossing robes and mortars while chairing the high session Latinx 101, Professor Ed, poet of back in the day, visionary journalist El Jefe H. Who else but Mariposa and the liftoff voice of truality, flying. Hello, Pedro's hovering in the wings, Nuyo Futurismo in La Casa, Edwin rising up and over and into, locus, hocus pocus, Lydia, oh Lydia, grounds poetry's history, her story, the crowd percusses, happening maracas, back to you, Victor, suavecito siempre, in otras palabras, home, Harlem, till all is said and almost done, which is el momento, cuando Felipe shows, allowing the hecklers triumph. Now you see why they call you the last poets. Indeed, launching into young lords politipo, call forth the last poets. Umar, Abiodun, trip, flip, race, space, time, place. Q's voice article from back in the day, changing everything into today. Esta misma casito de bienvenidos. Harlem Renaissance, Q food, delicioso y perfecto, win a buzz in a corner, combusts a tsunami to drown in. She appears. Zaki walks in, queen resplendent. Zaki appears, all lights shimmer down, glow. Zaki's in the house, folks, forks clatter floor. Zaki's here now, and the last poets ain't last no more. Zaki sidles up, whispers into Margaret's ear. We all aflutter to overhear. Then in laughter, Margaret lets it be known, there will be no nicotine for this woman on the throne. Instead, open the window on 7th Avenue. Jump, Zaki, jump. I'll not enable your death by cigarette, Sister Paulette, all you've been through. And a week later, she will pass. The doctor's daughter, holding court in Faye's basement. That poem about her daughter, Savannah, laughing over that with David in Paris before his sax rollicked the Everlast. Amiri there, over to Spaceman, her guitarist, laying down the sound bed, gravel, her voice formed poems from coming, and that time at the church with Gwendolyn Brooks, handing off poetry's baton. Read the poems, said Zaki, and she did. Jessica, Robbie, Laurie, thought music. Zaki pushes presides tradition-carrying unburying. The ashtray she threw at Miguel's head spins into orbit, waltzes on the stage at Princeton, the marriage of la poesia y el teatro. Oh shit, it's snowing in the poem. Ridiculoso. Each flake a different shaped poem. Zaki, into Zaki, change, Shanghai, parade route of paper, make that poem confetti. Some by Hector to open for Tulani, who resembles with the Tulani of the performer turned playwright. The Times says that. All praise, all things Zaki, the queen of poetry, the choreo poem that went all the way to Broadway. How poetry changes lives she lives. All praise our dear sister Zaki, the punch of kiss that will not miss. Word after word that must be heard for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Bob tells me you can't put rainbows in your poems anymore, says Bob Kaufman. Except for Zaki can, except for Zaki. All praise into Zaki, Shanghai, praise all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. So I'm going to now call up our second reader, Teresa Burns. And Teresa Burns is, I've met her about 2 years ago when she kindly invited me to read at the Watershed Poetry Series, which Teresa hosts at the Skate House in South Orange. And I won't speak too much about. I think I'll let Teresa's poems speak for themselves because I can say a lot of things about kind of the expansiveness of her work and kind of like the fascinating turns that they take, and just it's really really interesting and moving work. And but I hope that you check out her book, look up her book Design, and just enjoy her work, which we'll hear in a second. But I just want to say that I was really grateful at how welcomed I was by Teresa, and at the Watershed series, and how Teresa really seemed to understand what I was up to and kind of think deeply about my work. We then worked. I asked her to be a guest editor for the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow, which is a journal that I'm one of the kind of organizers on, and so we worked on that for a while. And it's just been a pleasure to know her and to work with her on various things. And I was really, really honored when she agreed to say a few kind words about my book. So I think that you will all very much enjoy Teresa's work. Please welcome Teresa Burns.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you so much. I'm still kind of in a daze. Hey, how's my volume? Am I loud enough? Yeah. I'm still kind of in a daze that Anton even invited me to read tonight, with Bob Holman and Andre Codrescu, and of course, Anton himself. As others have said, his book is just fabulous. It's very hard to categorize in a straightforward way, but I think it's a book of love poems at the end of the day. And so I thought I would read a few love poems that I've written and that appear in the book that I published a couple of years ago called Design. So the first one is called Shade Lovers. 5 straight days of rain, and the enormous hosta we moved out back fills out, blue as a lung, threatens to inhale the ghost ferns, hellebore, like something before history, when insects grew as big as gulls, and the world choked on its own oxygen. Here under the canopy, among the creepers and water suckers, we thrive. While out in front, the full sun singes. How the annuals there exhaust me. Passers-by, all their needs and thirsts. Stay and rest with me here. Be mourning, partial, as I am to you, who knows to turn your gaze to the side and let me breathe. I want to thank Nicole also for organizing and hosting this event. And also to Bob and Andre for getting a lot of people in here. Bob and Andre and Anton for getting the crowd in here. This is also, I guess I consider a love poem, though a very different one. Anton's book it's about love, but it's includes all the complications of love. Let's put it that way. The nice stuff and the complicated stuff. This is called Green, and it's actually an ekphrastic poem. So it was a landscape painting from a local artist here that was exhibiting in a show in a library nearby in New Jersey. And I was asked to write a poem in response to it. So it's called Green. Did I tell you I had a Vespa once? Pretty color, something between a turquoise and the Kelly green of my mom's favorite sweater. Dad got the bike cheap from Hatton Fisk's farm when they sold. Teddy and I spent that summer fixing it up, took turns riding it to the lake, the rally races, and a couple of times to the spot right here. We decided we wouldn't live a life like Mom and Dad's. We wanted apartments in the city, working in an office with air conditioning and a gourmet grocery next door, like Teddy has now. The first time we got high was here. Clouds purplish at midday, and where the grass line set against the next mountain glowed lime. And we laughed our asses off, thinking it was the weed making things extra green and alien. Now I see it's that way at dusk too. The horizon lit, and even more lemony flowers I can almost taste, though that tree on the right seems somehow diminished. I'm not so bothered by things these days. I get how the world is sweet, but bitter at the same time, and it's no one's fault. I can't even remember what happened to the Vespa, if Dad gave it away or Teddy sold it before he moved out. What about you? Did you ever lose track of something you once loved? And how did you get anywhere without it? So I have to thank Tina Kelly, who's a fellow poet in Maplewood, New Jersey, for the title of this next poem. It's a long one, and Tina likes long titles. It's called To the Professor I Lived With, whom my mother called Svengali. Because you introduced me to your friends as a poet, I wanted to be a truck driver, worm composter, game show host. Because you encouraged me to work upstairs, lay bare the sins of Reagan doctrine, I longed to sleep late, read your journal over lunch, make puns bad enough to embarrass you at parties. When you held forth in your sonorous professor voice, invoking Derrida and Foucault among your philofaxing friends, I'd take out my scissor tongue and slice you into parallelograms, half-truths that fought to become whole. Who's deconstructed now, I thought, happy and alone. I carried around a book back then, The Pill versus the Spring Hill Mine Disaster. Read it dozens of times, trying to assume Brodigan's casual penetration of suffering and the smog of love. Still, there was one poem about a woman he thought could lose 20 pounds. So even that house had to be burned down. It was decades before I could call myself, without irony, a poet. Allow myself into that club of steadfast bees, living flower to flower for whatever sticks to us or is carried by the wind to seed the world. I want to just read, in the book Design, there's a number of poems that are called Design, that are titled Design. And the book is in some ways an homage to Robert Frost's poem Design, which is a beautiful poem. I believe it's a sonnet, if you should ever get a chance to look at it. So this is the first poem in the book that's called Design. I don't believe in all the same thing, but in repetition, yes, surely yes. A shaky faith in the rule of three, Trinity, a flowering shrub here and there. Then, against the glow back of the familiar, the odd answer appears. A single daffodil or hyacinth's nub, middle of midweek. And in between, I don't believe, evergreen. All right, so I'm going to close with a poem that I feel is just timely because our community pool is going to open up this weekend for good for the season. And there's a bunch of us in South Orange, and I think Joan Larkin is here. I saw her out there in the crowd. Joan is one of the evening swimmers along with me and a bunch of other South Orangites. And we love to swim in the evening. And so I'm going to read this poem called Evening Swim. Thank you again so much to Anton, Bob, Andre, Nicole, and everybody who came out tonight. I really appreciate your being here. Thanks, Marcia. It's called Evening Swim. Sometimes after, I feel like I've drunk something. Not the mouthful of chemical water I swallow on the flip turn, but an elixir that makes my limbs longer, makes my lungs a city, lights on all night in my rented body. I slip in as the sun calms down, as the deer emerge to nibble the hosta. I can wait like a champ for a lane. I can read till there's almost no one. A coach I once knew told his swimmers, leave it all in the pool. He meant save nothing for later. Burn it down. It's Sunday in my small town, and my smooth strokes go mostly unnoticed. Sometimes I stop to drink like a beautiful animal whose eyes see a distant place I can't. I leave it all there. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much, Dave. It was amazing. I mean, thank you for this moving, beautiful poetry. Really fascinating. And thank you. So I'm now honored to introduce our third guest reader, Andrei Kudryavtsko. In many ways, someone who needs no introduction. Of course, he is a legend, a poet, scholar, novelist, critic, and Romanian-American poet that many of us know. And I really am honored that Andre, that you found the time to be here, and also for just the absolutely amazing endorsement. And also over the past few years, your encouragement of my work, some of the correspondence we've had, some of the really nice things that you've said, kind of also it seemed to kind of believe in my work and find that there was something of value to it. And actually, I want to say that my familiarity with Andrei's work goes back to many years when one of the readers of my thesis, my poetry thesis in college, Dave Powell, mentioned in his critique that some of the poems had like a bad boy energy, as he said, reminiscent of Andrei Kudryavtsko. And at the time, I had no idea who he was. And then, of course, I started reading him, and it's just such a honor that so many years later to have him read with us here. And again, for your really amazing words, amazingly kind words about my work. So please welcome everyone, Andrei Kudryavtsko. Let's see you on mute.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Anton. This is a wonderful evening of poetry, and it's always a great pleasure to read with Bob, and it was wonderful to hear Teresa. And I think we met one night. You were reading, and we went somewhere afterwards. And I made some notes from your poems. I really loved them. From the first time I heard you, I knew that I was in the presence of the real thing. And I wrote a poem then, that I sent to you, and then I kept redoing it and redoing it. And now there's a new collection that I'm sort of putting together, and there is the poem. And I'll read this first, and then I'll read some other poems from here. This is called Teaching in a Time of War for Anton Yakovlev. Class, take this constructive criticism and turn it into constructions from objects found among your classmates: combs, switchblades, pills, baggies, lucky beads, worn talismans, smudged phone numbers from nights in alleys and ruins, doodles of hearts and bodies to be collaged with eyeliner and rouge, fidgeting in wait for the shelter sirens. A way to keep your hands busy doing something else than jerking off machine guns. You are waiting for the mobiles and tears to ring. There is no hurry. The unsent postcards in the pockets of dead soldiers. My love, it is a good thing that you are not here. Panic from head to toe. No one can stand still for the future. The anesthetic pleasure machine in every house, not yet built, never to be built, a bomb crater to raise your children in. Class, phone your dreams into the auction of pain. Agitate your lives while you still have them. Reward your constructivist randomness. In the mild breeze, blood flows from the earth into your empty bellies. Class, be not ruffled by the aesthetic payoff, the pinpricks of pleasure from your spiky straitjackets. European culture decimates you and diagrams your sentence. Your constructivist examples will hang where you will. Now, this business of the constructivism that I had, I don't know what Bob said was true, that you are closer to Yesenin and you are a surrealist too. So, some of that. And then I thought of Russian constructivism, of course. And the references were not just to the war now, but to the pandemic, because this was the last time I was on Zoom. It was during the pandemic, and it feels in an odd way familiar, and it feels like such a strange time. And we're back, when I'm back on Zoom, I just have this feeling that I'm also back in the panic of the pandemic. So this is another work from there, mentioning another Russian. It's called Zoom Caviar Onegin. When we met for the first time in Park Slope, our board had Zoom caviar. We crunched fish eggs served by ballerinas who defected from Russia on point. We drank Zoom champagne from their slippers until they turned into steel black combat boots, pointed at Putin's crotch. The sweat of our attention increased drop by drop like a fetus outgrowing its jar. Art said a tight-lipped goodbye to classical grandeur, leaving millions of dollars in baby mink fur hats. In Russia, the masses eat the gunpowder of grenades mixed with Bolshoi sawdust and Swan Lake algae slime. It's all about food, is it not? So then follow a few more works from really probably with familiar references to our world there. This is a Vionesque poem. I call it a Vionesque, named after François Villon. It's a kind of Villon poem. Vionesque. He's Bulgarian, he's a Bulgarian, I'm a Turk. That pot-bellied stove holds our circle by the feet, covered in 7 pairs of dirty socks, just like our unwashed bodies since the spring, bald cotton in our hairy pits, funny old hats piled on our heads, shredded sandpaper, underwear filed down, teeth of razor, cuts into skin, cold beneath bony ribs. What few remain, clank, brr, brr. A knot of oak pops, sets our frozen wings on fire. And then this again, it's you understand immediately the references here. It's called "We Are the Wrong Size," and it has a little subtitle. It says, "We now live in Canada. Everything fits. We are the wrong size. All shoes were black and hurt. Fading blue skirts, gray hats, the wedding funeral suit, grandmother's wedding tulle. Mr. Fisher, the tailor, charged little and fixed everything. What tailors we had then! Our new shoes needed iron, horseshoes for ice and snow. Mr. Blacksmith, the farrier, made sure our shoes were heard. Steel on ice can sound forever. What ice we had, what snow. The worser the things, the better. So much better we were then. We wore each other's clothes. Girls borrowed each other's dresses, and boys wore their brothers' pants. We lived in our friends and cousins. We were so much closer then. Of course, we now live in Canada where everything fits. But yes, this is another sort of memory poem from the village. It's called Margareta, and here she got based on the cousin. The village cows come home tired, sounding their dull bells. The blue snow pulls down the night. We wake before the sun. Ice crunches under our horseshoed boots. We milk the cows, the buckets overflow. Cats lick the spillage in the furry shadows. We slosh the buckets in the kitchen where Margareta scrubs us before breakfast, turns the sizzling bacon in the pain perdu. She dreams that she has gone to the Black Sea, where she turns over like a pancake in the hot sun, hungry for a mountain girl, brown on one side, still white on the other. She didn't hear the goat She didn't hear the shelter siren, for now it snows and milk boils in the past. And I'll read two more poems from Borges. It's called Forgetting Then and Now, and this is a prose poem. Forgetting Then and Now. Mobs of bored nomads swept over Europe, setting fire to churches and universities. Captured nomads built firewalls to make the next nomads pause. After a short pause, the new nomads breached the walls. They kept coming back to make new bonfires. The old nomads asked the new nomads to not set fire to churches and universities, so that the nomads sure to follow won't have to remember what they already set on fire. Yes, but what's the fun in that, said Attila. I keep 1,000 scribes to keep track of things we set fire to, but they lose the records or die or set themselves on fire. You can't trust anyone these days. Now we live in a new digital dark ages brought about by info nomads who drown in the memories of hard drives before they can even start an honest fire. We would be now as amnesiac as the 12th century arsonists. Attila is such a fuss budget. The screens of the still smoking empires soothe neo-barbarians to sleep. It's not history that repeats itself, it's the pixelated memory of hot mayhem. And I'll end with this poem called Cavafy, because a wonderful poem by Cavafy that probably everybody knows called Waiting for the Barbarians Who Don't Come. He's in Alexandria drinking coffee and waiting for the barbarians who don't come. Without nursing the hope of barbarians, Cavafy would have died of boredom. And then they came, alas, and they were worse than the bourgeois in their cafe chairs. Cavafy's profound ennui and unspent violence fell to the blade of greater cosmic conformity, whose first victims were cultured Jews. Europe without Jews was a nasty place, a grim fairy tale, Alexandria burning in real time. An approximate home for l'homme approximatif, a dueling ground for shadows. Loving your murderer was such a Christian thing. Even Jesus had his doubts about it, hence the fury setting in motion the history of gangs, monastic orders, motor clubs, dark gyms, poetry salons. Even the smallest gang, the Cubists, with only 2 core members, lost count of suicides and murders. To quarrel in the cafe for style is one thing. To kill your neighbors for dactyls, another. To be a poet is to remember things that haven't yet happened, even when faced with catastrophic loss. The memory of hope for barbarians who came and burned Alexandria to the ground again. They wake in caves now, they smell the poet's yearning. They will be here again for flesh and flames. So I think I'll end that with another cheerful poem. You know, this book, yeah, the pandemic, you know, these were not written during the pandemic. They're written now, you know, when the pandemic seems far away.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Andre. This is
you.
really dazzling, you know, and really all 3 of your readings. I'm just so honored. It really a hard act to follow reading after you all, but just really honored, and I'm glad that we're recording this because I will be listening to this again in the future just to really take in all of your words. So thank you so much. So I guess I'll start and I'll read a bit from my book, One Night We Will No Longer Bear the Ocean. And you know, the book does trace kind of general arc of a relationship with its ups and downs. And I'm going to read a couple of poems from each of the 4 sections of the book. I don't think I'm going to preface where each section begins. I'm just gonna go through it, and you know, if some narrative emerges, great. If it doesn't, you know, you can read it more deeply in the book if you choose to get one. but don't worry too much about the arc of the narrative. So I'm going to start with the poem called At the Airport Hotel. I kept passing my hand on the velvet comforter. Nothing in the room had come from a grave. It was dusk, and the statue of Edward Snowden was working overtime to track the deletions in my last email to you. All those words I had refused. They were all on the bed now, slowly crawling over the edges, stinging our bare feet. And we sat on the corners, facing in opposite directions. We could already hear the bulldozers. Anxiety. And all the cashiers in the chocolate store loved us. No occasion to dream of poison. So much was said through eye contact, even when there was none. Our little corner welcomed blossoms while we sat speed reading. No restraining orders. Not that much death. The endorphins of a harmless question, holding on to the face across the water. A walking tour of an office park, a marina, a labyrinth, a novella. Everything rhymed. My family, an indispensable cairn. Pines on the seashore. Silence at the movies. Memory. It got colder. The cashiers smiled. You sat for hours in the graveyard. I liked holiday lights and peeking into embassies on Sunday. We soaked our feet in puddles. Eyes closed, you painted. And when we imagined spies all around, we touched. No matter the play we went to, it was the way our knees pressed against each other. One day you got a tattoo, but the waves washed it off. One moment, no whales were visible. The next moment, no whales were visible. Not that much death. We attended canonization parties together. Hot air balloons touched waterfalls. Satellites flew too high to see or to hear. The Cedar Creek. We'd steep tea, and then we read about tea, and then we steep it some more, and then we read some more, and there's just so much we need to say to each other. The moment you tell me the truth, I fall in the Cedar Creek. It's not my fault, nor is it yours, but now our neighborhood is not the same. We do not taste chocolate the same way. Can I forgive you? No, not really. Not at all. Go fall into a volcano. I'll be the volcano. I'll pick you up after the show trial. I would have liked to linger on your face. I used to wait for you by the Cedar Creek. After all, plenty of scholars keep their careers alive with thoughts of you. You juggle torches even when people kiss you. I would have liked to nestle with your world, but the world can destroy a rowboat. A lifelong addict, you are now clean, and a spy, but you ripple like a head scratcher. The Cedar Creek keeps adjusting its watershed. You no longer balk at decomposition. You compose a symphony to be played with metal hooks on dead things. You stand in front of the Cedar Creek and don't reveal any secrets. You resort to Russian anti-Napoleonic strategies, which is to say, you bravely choose to let Moscow burn. A general is wise to let the other general self-destruct. I do. The leitmotifs come back. We argue and we clutch. We go to Jesus Christ and bite into the infinite bread. Will we ever move beyond our lack of cue balls? The Cedar Creek never did turn into wine. Your fear touches me like a bouncing night. After. We board the ferry with nothing further to hide. A passing truck means everything to someone. The ferryman of death stands by in his coma. Albatrosses hang everywhere. We spoke through tremors. You ate from the sky's dead hands. Now, fortunes hang in lanterns. Humans walk around without language. I fall asleep on the headstone of your hypocrisy. Memoir. I hoped it would be trickier than that. But I could never catch that wrecking ball. Beer on the porch, a purifying cat. I hoped it would be trickier than that. Cremated to a crisp, the urn all set, no bones to grind, no children to console. I hoped it would be trickier than that. But I could never catch that wrecking ball. I throw boulders out of my window sometimes. Your memory, a whimsical stump, still fools me. Screeching thump dreams wake me up in the morning, creep like plants along the walls of the house. I go to the pinball machine. Your memory is still there, in the flower pot. I turn to the wall. The ducks are silent. Sometimes I see patterns of light on the radiator. At the James Joyce house. This is what I wanted to let you know. When I came home last night, I found my building repainted. Property management had renamed it from Ocean Plaza Apartments to James Joyce House, probably trying to boost the rentals next year. Neon lights above the front door displayed the new name in genuine Joyce handwriting, and all the condos had been rearranged the way James Joyce would have done it. The desk from which I had recited to you our surrealism was replaced with something faux Victorian. The dining chairs were also Joycean. An introductory booklet I found on the dinner table made a big deal of the way they were stylized so closely to his living room. You'd think he sat on every last one of them. In the bathroom, the shells we had picked up waddling for years around Cape Cod were replaced with a single crumbling clamshell. But that shell bore a genuine autograph of James Joyce. The booklet boasted that property management had handed me an antique worth $20,000 just to pay me back for the inconvenience of rearranging my rooms and throwing out half my things. Honored as I am, this morning I spent 2 hours looking for a rusty nail to dip into my Jameson. The rustier, the better. I have no TV to distract me. James Joyce didn't have one. So now neither do I. Not that I mind, of course, and yet tears come out of my eyes for some reason, and I take walks to inspect the building's dead ends, looking for spots intact from remodeling, trying to get back to a past that included you. If you were here, though, the autographs of James Joyce would have made it all worth it. You would have wept on my shoulder to be so close to your hero. I would have tried to talk to you about us, but you would have circled back to the dead, to Lepel Bloom's unsavory diet, to the goat-like creatures Stephen Dedalus had dreamed up. A panther would have shrieked outside the window just then, as we kissed, and you would have turned your eyes to look at it, acting like I wasn't even present. That's okay, I'd say to myself. At least you are here. Legendary rock star quote. Good morning. It's good to see you back in my future. I admit it, the clams in my brain lit up at the news in their waves. The mold from the fountain washed up nowhere. The half-eaten cardinal hung like a candy cane from the bookstore awning, blindsiding the cats. Good morning, good morning. I hear you're huggable again. The mayor even gave you a helicopter. Still, I hope you don't mind me keeping my own lantern. I may need that Mayflower vision. Yes, yes, your marginalia did go a long way, but Jesus. I've been status quo. Thank you for not asking. Brand geese are still my company, and a few people still picket my Vida Loca, but don't go full orchestra about it. I'm all over the news, widely read in the slaughterhouses. I sustain the bookstore with my speed reading impulses. When fishermen go to bed, they dream of my karma. Each morning, I take a walk in front of the tavern, look out at the sepia dunes, and cry out, "Killer!" I scrapple my sunlight. Wouldn't want it to go unfiltered. So how will you get here? Your usual sugar donkey? Can he carry the mass of your wine and your godhead? Will you show up with Hessians? Will it be rainy or boring? Will canaries go on strike? Lately, as I redraft my memories, I lose corners. The lawnmower people gave up hiding their horror at carcasses popping up. The mountains still break. They've built a house on the lot where we used to smirk, but the wall where the shadow of your face is still there. It's one of my most loaded places to visit. Call me when you arrive. I'm sure you will. For a few minutes, let's think of each other as people. Let's take a train to some very specific fissure, then bury our heads in each other's favorite confusion. Your legendary rock star coat is safe in my labyrinth, not hardened by foreshadowing. Your eyes are still good and lost. Don't worry. When you're tired, feel free to peekaboo here. We'll stare at death together and not rub tombs. You don't need a permit to cry. This is the title poem. It's called One Night We Will No Longer Bear the Ocean. We danced in the streets, been at it for years, but little had been worked out. You couldn't remember the last complete sentence. The pool flickered with rotting apples. I got angry, but had my doubts. Love was as good a reason as any. At one after party, the band was so good we thought we understood each other. We were shadows behind red curtains, neither gathering dust, nor leaning in for a kiss. So that was it then. Trees falling, and we plugged our ears. Well, the trees don't care. They remember the outdoor theater far better than the actors. After many years, all that's left is a standalone door in the garden. So much easier now to act our age. Regret. Later in life, we enter the neighborhood bookstore and survey the new arrivals. We leave for the best-selling picture book about the moon that bites people. Down from the sky it swoops and takes a chunk right out of you. A big chunk. Sometimes a whole limb. A spleen, a heart. The moon is always Big Brother, and at the most counterintuitive moment it will come down and sink its teeth into you. Could happen to any of us. Sometimes it dispenses life lessons. That may be the most dispiriting part. The moon might put a bromide in your ear about what to do if at first you don't succeed, then bite your ear right off, or even your head. Children of all ages must be telling each other in hushed voices about the moon's victims and the shades of pink the trees acquire while the moon gently creeps. Isn't this amazing, you say? I wish I had thought of this. This is the freshest thing I've seen in years. I cannot help but agree. And notice how your jawline, which used to fascinate me till morning, reflects the sun, except for the eclipses. And I'm going to close with the last poem in the book. This is called To Remain Human. When the song ends and the light hits you, fall on the floor and recall the way you laughed for hours the first time I held you. I told the artist about your smile, and he sketched the shadows under your eyes. The last ice cream I bought you was left behind on the bench for raccoons that never showed up. And then the rain went on into the next month, soaking the abstract paintings on the porch. And all the cushions are covered with pictures of houses. Humans spill out of their windows, roll down the slopes and into the sun. An eclipse is coming. Gestures turn to elegy in the dark. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
I think we should unmute so that our amazing readers can hear us clap, like in real life. Because this is real life. It's just, you know, virtual. So
Excellent. Thank you.
we would be throwing roses at you if we could, Anton.
Yes.
But we can't, unfortunately. And Teresa.
Yes. Yay.
Oh, well, we probably have time for like one or two quick questions. I want to be respectful to our guest readers' time here as well. So if you have any questions for Anton or Bob or Teresa or Andre, you can put them in the chat and I can ask for you. If there are no questions, we could just end here as well. But I just always like to give that opportunity in case anyone wants to ask anything of our amazing readers. So lovely to hear all of you read. And Anton, you did a really amazing job of picking your blurbers, because what a beautiful reading we had tonight.
That was wonderful.
Well, I don't think we have any questions, so we can go ahead and end here. Do you have any final words to our guest tonight, Anton?
Well, thank you again. I mean, I'm really, really honored that, you know, first of all, to our guest readers, again, thank you for writing the kind words about my book and for just all your encouragement over the years. And just for your fantastic readings. You know, this is, you know, couldn't be in better company. I'm really, really intimidated and honored to read with you. And thanks to everyone who was here for joining us, for listening, for I see there are all those comments in the chat, which there's no way I'm going to be able to read them all, but maybe there's a way to save the chat somehow. But I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks to everyone. And
I look forward to your next book. I hope it's it's going to be a different story. This one was a pretty sad story, but your voice is still there, and your poetry.
some things in the works. Yes.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Nicole. Thanks,
Night.
everyone.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you.
Love you, Anton.
Splendid, Anton.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Excellent.
Anton.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.